So one other little tip for upper chest, if you go a little bit closer, you'll see a little more upper chest activation. The reason for that is the clavicular head contributes to shoulder flexion. So if you lift your arm up, you'll feel the upper pec start to contract. Do you feel that? Like as you lift it up?
Oh, absolutely.
You feel it contract, right? And if you think about it, when you're using a closer grip, you're mimicking more of that shoulder flexion motion. Whereas if you're really, really wide, you're not doing this, you're doing this.
All right, so I'm gonna disagree with this, and here's why. First of all, let me just say that narrow presses and wide presses on an incline, they will both target the upper chest. But the wider press, in my opinion, will be a little bit more specific and effective for targeting the upper chest as opposed to the narrow grip. Here's why. When you are using a straight bar and you put your arms more narrow like this, the middle and even some of the lower pecs can gain leverage to pull the arm forward because the arm is tight to the body, and therefore the pecs can use the rib cage as a kind of pulley to pull the arm forward. So in other words, the narrow position will leverage all of the pecs a little bit more. But when you take this wider grip and you press more inward to outward at that incline angle, look what happens to the leverage of the lower half of the pecs. Now all of a sudden I actually want to pull the arm downward and inward, whereas the upper half of the chest basically only wants to drive the arm inward toward the collarbone. In other words, when you do a wider press, these lower fibers will be able to contribute less because their orientation is not in line with where the arm is moving. But when you grip more narrow, the lower and the middle pecs can actually contribute a lot more to moving the arm upward, at least in the bottom position where the load is highest. So in my personal opinion, I would use an arm path that's a little bit wider and a little bit more horizontal, still at that incline angle where you're driving your biceps inward toward your collarbone, rather than something that's really tucked in where you're trying to press more like this. This is also why something like a wider chest fly machine is great for the upper half of the chest and not so much the lower half of the chest. But let me know your experiences below. Do you like the wider press more or the narrow press more when it comes to training the upper pec on an incline bench?